Uh, I'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of
of
the
the
United
United
States
States of America
Yeah.
and to the republic
for which
it stands, one nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and justice for all.
Oh, wow, it's amazing.
We are still not getting any better.
All right, so,
Hey, but we're doing it.
yep.
That's right.
Okay, roll call.
All right, Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamill is here in Highland.
Clerk Flowers is here in Highland. Mrs. Frederick.
Mrs. Frederick is here in Highland.
Mrs. Cooper.
Mrs. Cooper is here in Highland.
Mr. Howe.
Highland trustee Brian Howe is here in Highland.
Mrs. Lewis.
Mrs. Lewis is here in Highland.
Mr. Salvia.
Salvia trustee, Highland, I'm present.
All right,
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve the agenda,
Support.
Salvia.
Brian, who supported? Okay,
Brian.
can I have a vote, please?
Mr. Howe.
Howe, yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick.
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia.
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamill, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, consent agenda. Motion to approve.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moves and supported.
Could we, real quick,
Does anybody-
there was, Judy had mentioned to me a check that is a duplication of payment, and so we're removing that. Do we need to note that here? Because list of bills is in the packet.
It's the check for Bogey Lake Greenhouse for $50.50, I believe.
Yeah.
That's Highland Garden Club's responsibility.
Okay, let's,
So,
Judy, you want to amend your
yeah,
motion?
I would move to approve the consent agenda with corrections.
And support.
Okay. And that's for a duplicate check of $50 and what, 51 cents or some
I think it's 50/50.
50/50. Okay. All right, vote please.
Mrs. Cooper.
Mrs. Cooper says yes.
Mrs. Frederick.
Mrs. Frederick says yes.
Mrs. Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia.
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe.
Mr. Howe, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamill, yes.
All right.
Okay, next thing is item 6, announcements and information inquiry. Farmers Market is on Saturday, starting June 19th through October 9th, 9 a.m. to noon. The summer concert series is going to kick off on Tuesdays again, Veterans Park, starting July 6th, going through August 10th. Township offices will be closed on Monday, July 5th in observance of Independence Day. And anybody else have any announcements they think they would like to make?
Nope.
All right, public comment. Anybody have any public comment?
I do.
Okay,
Is this the good place to do it?
if it's
Okay.
public comment.
So while we were reviewing the cell tower leases, I found that T-Mobile for the last 13 years has not been paying us a 4% increase, annual increase. And I contacted them and they said they were sorry. And today we cashed a check for $61,664 for back lease.
Wow. Way to go, Jennifer.
Yeah,
Very excited.
Who was
Good
supposed
work,
to be-
Jenny.
Who was supposed to be watching that?
Nice.
I'd rather not speak about that.
Okay, thank you.
But Joe, you can call me.
All right.
It was not our department.
Thank you.
It's nobody present.
So
let's put it this way, it's an incredibly complicated
It's a mess.
piece of work. It's,
We have 7 leases and 2 different towers,
Okay,
and it's been since 1997.
okay,
So T-Mobile came on in like 2007. So they took over someone else's lease.
okay, just wondered.
Yeah.
Well, no
It was,
matter who's responsible from the past, I'm glad you found it. And you know, sometimes it happens and you got to
Yep.
correct that stuff. So good job.
Yep.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Great work, Jenny.
Yes,
I-
great.
you just keep the money then. You do a good job.
We put it in capital improvement.
Okay, good. All right, any other public comment?
I've got one. I had a question
Yes.
with all of this attention that's being paid to internet security and things like that. What type of a strategy does Highland Township have in place so that it doesn't get hacked and held ransom like other municipalities have, as featured on 60 Minutes the other night, and the other more public ones that are going on? Apparently, the internet people that are sabotaging are going after small entities now, and because they know that they can get small amounts of money, and so they just go around and hit all these small municipalities for, $10,000, $20,000, whatever it turns out to be. So what is it that Highland does that would represent backups that would be secure, being that these guys can load a system with a time bomb that goes off in 2 weeks, so that if you've been backing stuff up daily, you've already pulled the little bug into your backup, files or your backup media that you might not have online all the time. I was envisioning something myself that said that you just go out and buy a whole bunch of 5 terabyte hard drives, and you'd have one for every day of the month, so that then that way, if there was a ticking time bomb, you would only lose X number of days.
Well, it's handled by, we have an IT company that we pay to monitor our system constantly. We have an extremely robust firewall, and there is no true protection. I mean, you can do everything you can do. Somebody, if they're looking for it, they're going to find an avenue in. I think that most of what we do is just basically store day-to-day files on our server. They could probably crap out a few pieces of software, but I think we could rebuild pretty easily with what we have. But there's no guarantees. So we're doing what we can, and we're paying somebody to take the responsibility to see that we stay protected and stay up to date.
And for our bank accounts, we have, you need dual approval, and you have to have a token with a number on it to be able to, a password, username, token. And if we transfer any money out of a bank, you have to have dual approval.
And it's encrypted.
Yeah.
So I guess you can encrypt crap too, so it doesn't matter. So that's what we're doing, Bill. I hope that doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy, but it's what we are doing. It's the only way we can deal with it. So any other public comment?
May I make a comment?
And who is it?
Monica Stocka.
Okay, Monica.
I wanted to ask if Highland Township has made any proclamations for June as Pride Month in support of our residents from the LGBTQ community, to make sure that everyone feels welcome here in Highland.
We have not done any proclamation on that. I would hope that everyone does feel welcome here in Highland. I don't have any position to go beyond that at this point right now. So tonight, no, there's no proclamation.
Okay, so we're not doing pride flags in front of the village hall or township hall or anything like that?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Highland's too Republican to be LGBTQ friendly and all that compared to Ferndale or Logan Clawson.
And who are you? Who's that? Jamie? That's a personal opinion there. So public comment. Go ahead. Any more public comments?
Ms. Kelly's been waiting patiently to comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Lado. Good evening. I'm Lisa Kelly. I'm a resident of Highland, have been for 18 years. I live at 1060 Stone Barn Road. And I'm calling, I want to make a comment about the proposed zoning ordinance that was discussed last month to rezone parcel 11-30-101-001. It's vacant land that's on the southeast corner of West Highland Road and South Tipsco Lake Road. And I understand that, you know, the original proposal or application was to create, I'm not sure if it was C1 or C2, but now it has changed after the last meeting. The trustees asked the applicant, Mr. Bryson, if he wanted to consider the other zoning. And I have several comments on that. One, originally when the applications were put in, not only did Highlands Planning Commission deny the request, but so did Oakland County's Planning Commission. When it went to the Oakland County Economic Development, their recommendation was to consider it, although they did find a mistake in the original, where when the map was put out, it didn't show the full 4 acres, which I think is a little misleading to the community if you can't really properly depict what the size is that is being considered. Other things to I'd like to have considered is that there's no other commercial property on this end. There's a big chunk further east on Highland Road, but there's an entire neighborhood of at least 75 houses, 60, 70 houses right there on that corner, where it's going to destroy the feel of that community. It is a neighborhood. Across the street, there are several houses that go all the way from that starting point, not only north, but going further east to where the auto dealerships are. It'll be the first thing that anyone sees when they come into our town is whatever kind of commercial business is there, and then a neighborhood and so forth. So I don't know if we're really considering what the optics are and what we want people coming in to our town to see. And currently right now, there's 2 bus stops that are right there where kids are coming, and it's the start of a dirt road. And so I think that really creates complications for those families, for safety, for their youth to have a commercial building right there. There's also additional vacant commercial property in Highland that's been vacant for years, for decades. One that comes to mind is the old lumber building right there near the where Highland Middle School used to be. And if we can't fill other commercial property, why are we turning residential into commercial where we absolutely have no control over our neighborhood at that point? Additionally, right now we're not. There's a big push for remote working. A lot of corporations are allowing their employees not only to stay at home to continue working through the global pandemic, but into the future, which allows us to be the residents to a lot of up and coming young couples who are highly educated, who have those positions where they can work at home. I'd rather have them be my neighbor than a commercial building so that they can send their kids to our schools. Currently, there is a decline in a shortage of residential property in Oakland County, actually all of Southeast Michigan. An article from May 2nd in the Oakland County Press talks about how the availability of housing has dropped 51 or 52% from last year, March of last year to March of this year. There's less than a 1-month supply of homes. I would rather have that property go into residential housing so that we can get young couples in, rather than having a commercial building in a neighborhood because somebody is trying to, and I'm a capitalist, and so I'm all for trying to realize different business opportunities, but there's a place and a time for that, and this particular area is not. We're not showing respect for our master plan. If our planning commission declined it and so did Oakland County's planning commission, why is it within the ability of the trustees to make that suggestion of, would you consider this? They denied that. And we elect officials, and then you appoint people to be on those commissions to act on our behalf. And so it's a little unsettling that what we want, and the people that I talked to in that neighborhood didn't even know that this was happening.
Okay,
Excuse me, Mrs. Kelly. The time has elapsed.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for allowing me to comment.
You're welcome. Next.
Speak.
Go ahead, Mr. Bryson.
Right. Yes, I am Mr. Bryson. I'm the owner of that property. Want to enhance your community. Right next to the property is a daycare center. I'm not asking for the full 8 acres to be commercial. I have asked for a division of the property in the back 3 acres, the back 3 parcels, which will be about 1.25 acres apiece, is back where the neighborhood is at. Those are going to be residential lots. It's a front half up on the busy intersection of M59 is what I'm asking to be zoned as commercial. And if my plans is to put a nice complex up there, nothing like they just put in White Lake down by AutoZone. To me, that is ugly. I'm going to put something in there that's going to enhance the community as they come into your community. And again, you have a daycare center right there next to the property. I consider that commercial.
Those are our children. They're not commercial items, sir. And with all due respect, those 4 acres that was misrepresented on your application when it was sent out, and enhancing our community is by bringing families in.
Excuse me,
Please direct,
public comment is one person at a time.
and please direct your comments to the board, not to each other.
Right.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
I'm all set for now. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other public comment?
I'd like to make a couple comments if I may.
Sure.
First of all, if you haven't noticed, in the township, we've got on Lone Tree, they did a repaving short-term project. It's very nice, which goes back to the back end of the school property, which they've redone that too. It was through I know it was through the pipeline, but that's very nice. They moved the sign back there for it used to be on the boulevard. Very nice entrance there. Also, we had graduation yesterday at Lakeland and Milford, and a lot of Highland Township students graduated. And it's the first time we've been outside in quite a while. It was hot, but they did a real nice job. I thought it was nice to have some sense of normalcy for the kids. And we have a lot of newly, Highland Township resident children or not young adults now have graduated. So it was a pretty cool day. I read on Twitter, Milford's went well. I know ours did because I was there. So it's nice to see. And like the old days, we used to graduate outside, and I graduated from Milford way back when. But it was really nice. So it was a nice thing going on there. So a lot of good things happening in Highland. So anyways, that's all I want to say.
All right. Any more?
I just sent an email or a message to Mr. Lato that Mr. Mueller or Wayne Mueller was talking, but he didn't unmute. So I don't know if you can see the top of his head now. I think he's repositioned.
You're still muted.
I think Heidi had something to say too, right? Did you, Heidi?
Well, let them finish their conversation, and I just have tidbits about positive items going on in the community. On June 17th, real quick, I'll let you know, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. we're doing a COVID vaccine clinic at the Activity Center on the north end of the Highland Township office complex. And simultaneously, portion of that day is a partnership with Community Sharing. From 10 to 12, we will have a mobile food pantry, and that will be open to the public, young, old, or anyone in need can come and get food if they would like. So those 2 activities are going on at the center during the day, and we will be hosting memorial services for Al Evans Sr., who anybody that's been to a concert or the farmers market back in the day, in the last decade, Mr. Evans was our local photographer and lover of Highland and passed away a couple months ago now, but his family has chosen the center to hold a memorial luncheon, outdoor seating available. So stroll through and show respect. And we have a family tree that was created by his granddaughter for everyone to put a thumbprint on in memory of Mr. Evans and his community that he loved dearly. That's in the afternoon, starting at 3:30 on the 17th of June. That's it.
All right. Anybody else?
I'm trying to help Mr. Mueller unmute, but he doesn't seem to be able to get it to work.
All right. Any more comments? Okay, we're going to move on. Our next item is a presentation by our auditors from Plant Moran. Amanda Cronk, if you want to, I guess what we can do is we can make Amanda a co-host. Hopefully that's not going to bump you. Justin, let me know. No, you're still co-host. Okay, Amanda,
Yep.
you should be in control now.
Okay, great. I will share my screen in 1 minute. So I just want to start off by thanking the board for having us here tonight. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Amanda Cronk. I am a senior manager at Plant Moran, and I've been working with the township for a number of years now. With me tonight is Amy Tytar. She is the senior on the township's audit. Unfortunately, the partner on the township's audit, Pam Hill, had an unexpected item come up tonight, so she is attending to that. So she does send her apologies that she couldn't make it tonight. But Amy and I are here tonight to provide you an overview of the township's audit that we recently concluded for the township's year end of December 31st, 2020. I'm just going to start off by saying 2020 was a year, certainly in a lot of different regards. I'm sure this is not news to anyone, but we were able to timely complete the audit, and in the process spent approximately 325 hours auditing the books and records of the township in order to issue what we reference as an unmodified opinion. So what that should mean to all the board members is that we've issued an opinion that you should feel confident that your financial statements are free from material misstatement. That is always the goal. You certainly don't want to see any modifications there. So I'm happy to report that. As I mentioned, 2020 was a year of challenges, and I guess auditing was no different. We did perform the audit remotely due to the pandemic, and I'm sure the management and our contacts at the township can attest to the fact that our audit procedures were unchanged, whether we were in person or not, and perhaps were even more thorough than, so there were areas that we had to dig into a little bit more just because of the remote auditing environment, and it just, it's a challenge, right? So we got there. I want to thank management and certainly Amy and Karen as well. I know it took a village this year, and we really just thank everyone for their assistance. In front of you tonight, I know it was already mentioned, but in front of you, you should have the audited financial statements along with our end of audit letter. Instead of covering the nuts and bolts of that financial statement, we've prepared a few comments in a PowerPoint presentation. And then we will bookend our presentation with some comments on the end of audit letter. So what I will do is see if I can share my screen here and walk us through the presentation. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Amy is going to go ahead and get us started with a few comments on the general fund.
Sorry, finding my unmute here. Okay, so we're going to start with this pie chart here. You'll see that it breaks out the township's revenue sources by type for the general fund and the capital improvement funds. The two largest sources are state shared revenue and grants at 49% and property taxes at 13%. The most notable difference I want to point out here from last year would be the increase in federal grants from 1% to 5%, or about $150,000. And this is due to funding received by the township related to COVID during 2020. The rest of the buckets you see really didn't fluctuate a whole lot from the prior year besides that. If you want to go to the next slide, Amanda. We'll take a look at the corresponding expenditures for these funds. You'll see, obviously, the largest use is general government at 74%, and this was also the case in the previous year. Although this year there was an increase in general government expenses by about $328,000, the majority of this increase is attributed to contributing to the Western Oakland Transportation Authority, or WOTA, as well as passing grant funds through to WOTA. And this activity was previously reported in the township's transportation fund. The only other fluctuation here that I would like to point out is the decrease in public works expense of about $211,000. This is due to less overall spending in the capital improvement fund, especially with the M59 bike path complete. You'll see there in the light gray, it's at 4% this year.
One thing I just want to chime in here with, if I may, these two charts are really going to see, or could potentially see, some changes here as we're heading into 2021. So the township is expected to receive some money under the ARPA program, which is very early on in the process. So some interim guidance has been released on what you can spend that money on. We've been in various discussions with management and just making sure that that money is being spent appropriately. And as I mentioned, I think that funding is going to change the way these pie charts look just a touch. But again, the township is well aware of the federal revenue source. And again, stipulations tied to that are forthcoming and how those funds can be spent. So I would anticipate some sort of changes on these two slides, but again, the township is well aware of those restrictions and is certainly planning accordingly. Moving on to the next slide here, we did want to spend just a few minutes talking about the fund balance in the general and capital improvement funds. And just as a point of reference, we do look at these two funds together, although they are presented separately in the financial statements. We do analyze them together for this meeting, only because the capital improvement fund really is working to track expenditures related to projects, large capital projects. And a lot of that funding does come through the general fund. So it makes sense to analyze those two funds together. So as you can see by this graph here, the trend is of that blue bar, which is primarily a majority of the fund balance in those two funds, is trending upward, which is a great sign. The township has weathered the COVID-19 storm. I know we're kind of still in the middle of that storm, but the township really has weathered that well over the last 18 months or so, and has capital plans and has been working on adhering to those capital plans over the last few years. I know the fire hall construction got kicked off this last year. And again, more capital renovations are coming this next fiscal year. So while the fund balance has been growing in these funds, again, it's been growing strategically and has been planned to be used to fund capital projects that are now coming to fruition. Switching gears here slightly. So we spent our time on the last few slides, again, talking about general fund and the capital improvement fund. This slide really presents the bigger township picture. So this slide includes all township activity. It includes long-term capital assets, and it includes any long-term debt. So you can see here again, the trend is up. So that is a positive. So again, the township continues to make investments in capital. And you can see here that that gold colored bar is the investment in infrastructure, whether it be general government type assets or water assets. The orange bar there is restricted, meaning those resources are restricted for a purpose, such as your public safety. And that teal bar represents unrestricted resources. So one thing I do want to point out here and commend the township on is many communities actually don't have positive unrestricted net position. And that is really due to their legacy costs. The township is in a very good position from a legacy cost standpoint, as your healthcare is well funded and you don't have a pension liability. So again, if you were to take yourself and compare yourself to other communities, neighboring communities, it is not going to be the same picture. So keeping that in mind, you're in a very strong financial position, and you have forecasted out your needs, and you're working to fulfill those needs with the resources that you have. So one other comment I did want to add, you'll see here from 2018 to 2019, there's a little bit of a spike there. That really represents the township taking control of its water system. So previously the county had maintained that on your behalf, and title to those assets did transfer in 2019. So that's representative of that spike there. Lastly, let's talk about the water fund. So again, this is just some information from the 2020 year. You can see the operating revenue did exceed the operating expenses. So what that means is the current users of the system are paying for the cost it takes to deliver that water to them. Now, what you will notice is there is a slight operating loss, and we broke out depreciation expense there because that really represents the use or the wear and tear on the infrastructure. So those costs, or the revenue that's being charged to the residents, is just about covering the wear and tear on the infrastructure. So again, something to monitor. These are all metrics that should be monitored throughout the year, just to make sure that the rates are in line with the expenses that you're incurring to deliver that water to the residents. One other thing I will add that's not on this slide is the water fund is cash flowing well. So you did increase your cash about $60,000 in 2020, which again is another good metric, is the cash coming in, covering the cash outflows that it costs to run the system. So again, all things that you're monitoring well, and certainly monitoring your infrastructure needs as you go, because we do all realize that those are costly when repairs need to be made. I will take a short pause if there are any questions from the board, and then I can move on to the letter. Okay, well, I had a few comments. So this on my screen here is what our end of audit letter should look like. What I want to start off with is actually what's not in this letter. And what's not in this letter is a section that would describe any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified as a result of our audit.
Okay, Amanda, your letter's not coming up on the screen.
Oh, okay, hold on.
You have to put the PowerPoint away and then open up the other one.
Okay, let me redo that. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, please. Are you good now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what I was saying, I am excited to report that we identified no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies as a result of our audit. And that really has taken a lot of collaboration and hard work on the township's part. I can't say this at very many communities. So I'm extremely pleased to be able to share that with you tonight. The first section of this letter, I won't go through it, but all of the board members received a letter at the beginning of our audit indicating how we've planned our audit to go. This letter is a follow-up to that letter, and this indicates that we had no deviations from our plan. So our audit went according to how we planned it, and if we ever did have any deviations, this is the letter that it would be reported to the board in. The second section of this letter gives you some informational and legislative updates. I know there's a lot of things going on right now, whether GASB related or at the state level, and we just we work hard to keep your team apprised of things. So we have included some updated information at the end of the letter just for your perusal and reading in your free time. But certainly if you have any questions on those items, we would be more than happy to discuss those and certainly answer any questions that you do have. So again, we certainly appreciate everything that the township does. And I would certainly be happy to take any questions if there are any.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Nothing better.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to thank the Plant Moran team for working with us and all the difficulty of COVID and all that. We still managed to get through with a smooth process, and we appreciate your help throughout the year. Anytime we have a question, and it's always helpful to be able to reach out to you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tammy.
I second that.
Good. Thanks, Jennifer.
I'm going to say the same thing. It's a pleasure to work with you guys, and it's also very rewarding to when we are able to show these graphically how our township is doing. I get to meet monthly with 15 or so township supervisors from Oakland County, and I get to hear a lot of other points of view of how their communities are doing and what type of liabilities they have. And it's always a real good feeling to be able to walk out of that room and go, it's so good not being in their shoes. And so our shoes are above water and clean. So I think that's the best thing we can say. So it's been a team effort for a long time, not just, my term or the 8 years that I've been in office, but since before me as well. So it's been a pleasure to be a part of that whole process. And it's a goal of not only mine, but our other board members and in-house officials and bookkeepers to see that we stay on top of things and not get buried by it. And that which means we're staying as responsible to our taxpayers as we can possibly be. And I think that if everybody looks at the one pie chart that shows what portion of our revenues is actually from taxes, property taxes, you'll see that we're doing a lot more than just collecting property taxes. We're keeping those as low as we can, and haven't raised them the entire time I've been in office. So, and we don't at this point have a plan to do so. So, I want to thank the taxpayers for allowing us to be able to do the job we've done, and thank you guys as auditors for reinforcing that.
Thank you.
Great job as usual. I just want to point out that Amy and Karen are really the backbone of the township team, and they work very, very hard to make sure that our financial statements are easily read, they make sense, and everything's in the right place, and they do a heck of a job.
They do.
Hear, hear.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Good to see you.
It was
You
good to
too,
see
Amy.
you too.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
All right, that was now we move on to pending business. And last month we introduced the proposed zoning ordinance amendment Z020 to rezone parcel number 1130-101-001 vacant land, West Highland, South Tipsico Lake Road, approximately 4 acres. I'm reading the ordinance as it is. It was submitted by applicant Jeffrey Bryson, who did speak in public comment. And I think the thing that if the board has read their packets clearly and notice that there's more than just our planning commission involved in recommendations on this this request, I think that's what we need to address. So anybody like to make a motion to, this is the point where our planning commission and the county's planning commission both recommended denial. One of the major components of that, above all, is that it's not master planned either. Sometimes there's master planning for parcels that would allow for changes in zoning for the future, but in this particular case, there's no master plan allocation for this type of zoning in that parcel. So if the board were to go ahead and approve this ordinance change, we would definitely be going against the master plan, and that can open up some pretty big cans of worms. I think that what we should do, somebody should make a proposal one way or another here. So if you want to discuss it, we can discuss it.
Can I make a comment?
What's that?
Can I make a comment? Jeff Bryson.
Not at this time, Jeff.
Okay.
I would move to deny the rezoning request Z021 from ARR. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Proposed zoning ordinance amendment Z020 to rezone parcel 11-30-101-001, vacant West Highland, South Tipsico Lake Road, approximately 4 acres of a 10-acre parcel from LV Lakes and Village Single Family Residential to C1 Local Commercial District.
Support Lewis.
Okay, moved and supported. Now the board can have discussion on this. I think this is an opportunity for anybody wants to make a statement, they can. If not, then we can move on to a vote.
I have a question. Could you explain why the county planning commission has a voice in this? I've never seen this before.
So they have a voice on it because it borders Heartland Township. So when it borders another community, we have to send it to CZC so that they can review it for us, because we don't know Heartland's master plan and zoning. We can look it up, but that's why it goes to that committee.
Oh, so it's not a county. That makes more sense. It's not a county thing. I misunderstood. It's just a community
zoning committee, I think it's called.
Okay. Thanks, Jen.
Yep, under their review, they originally were reviewing the C2. So you'll notice that their tone changed in the letter. And then under their second meeting, they were reviewing it still for C2, but they also commented on C1 and office service.
Okay.
And the fact that it is against our master plan, it's, it does open a lot of doors. So
I would like to point out that, and maybe Jenny can fill in too. So if it remains residential, there are allowable uses for residential properties that might be more to Mr. Bryson's thinking. You can have a home office, you can have a daycare facility, adult care facility, some things like that, which may suit that spot without changing the rezoning.
And to add to that list, yeah, you can have small institutional uses too.
Kind of like training facilities and
churches.
Or religious, yeah.
All right. So we had a motion to
Have
deny.
a comment?
Yes.
Yeah, additionally, it doesn't make any sense to make a change like this with residential people surrounding the parcel on the backside. The property has been residential, and that's what it needs to be considered. At the very worst, there might be some condo or something like that that could be at least semi-residential, but we don't need to go into commercial.
I did drive down today and just take a look around, and it is residential. Completely around it.
I think some of the comments that I've had given to me from others that had discussed it with me was that it's our gateway, and one of the elements that we do try to portray is the gateway to the community being having that residential feel to it. Even though we do have some larger commercial stuff at the intersection of Hickory Ridge Road, it still is, it sets the standard for the gateway. People come in. So that and the master plan, I think that the best example of not following the master plan is the J Chevrolet, which caused a lot of uproar at the time. It was put in there against the master plan, and the board approved it, and it did create a lot of fire from that one. So it's not something you want to play with lightly. So all right, any other comments?
Rick, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I'm a resident on Stone Barn. I agree with everything Lisa has said. One other comment besides how it affects the residents there. I don't know how many have tried to leave Tipsico and go on to 59. At times, it's very difficult. We certainly don't need more traffic, people coming in and out of that area. To cross over to go west on 59, sometimes it's almost impossible.
Right.
For certain hours. So it's a traffic problem now. Anybody living on Tipsico or Lone Barn?
Is this Mr. Mueller?
Lone Barn?
It's
Try-
Mr. Mueller. He's asking.
Oh, Mr. Mueller, Wayne
I
Mueller.
can hardly hear him.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm going to let him speak because he tried to get in earlier in the public comment and wasn't able to get the.
One
Can
of the
hardly hear
comments I don't know if you heard me. One of the comments I have is, besides the effect on the residents there, is the traffic problem leaving Tipsico, trying to get onto 59. Sometimes certain parts of the day, it's extremely difficult. We certainly do not need more commercial traffic around that area trying to go in. People living on Tipsico, Stone Barn, Lone Tree, trying to get out onto Hickory Ridge, it's tough. And the more commercial, more people driving into that area, it's just going to make it extremely frustrating.
So he's
All right.
agreeing with you.
Thank you for your comment. Sorry we couldn't get you in earlier, but
That's
we.
fine.
It was our fault, I think.
Okay.
That's okay. All right, so we've got the motion to deny. We've got a second on that motion, right?
Yep.
So I think that if anybody has no more questions or comments on the board, then I'm going to call for a vote, please.
Supervisor Hamel?
Yes.
There's been a hand up. Mr. Bryson has had his hand up for some time. I didn't know if you saw that or not.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Okay. I mean, I understand. I originally wanted zone 2 after the planning meeting. I understood and listened to the people talk, and that's why I reduced it to C1. And in regards to Oakland County, they looked at it as C2. I reduced that. I'm trying to be cooperative and having the back part of the property where there is residential homes to be residential. I'm not asking for the whole thing to become residential. I mean, technically I can put a house up there and have a barn there with chickens and pigs and horses. I don't think the residents would like that because that would be very loud. But I personally myself would not want a house on M59 if I had a choice to put a house up.
All right. We appreciate your comment, and I hope you don't, these are difficult decisions to make when people are property owners and they'd like to be able to do what they want with the property they own. But we also, as a board, have to look at the broader reaching reactions that come from making these decisions. And some of the key ones are, if you develop a master plan, it's not written in stone, but as long as the master plan is in effect, it's something that you need to follow. Now, if you want to change the master plan, you have to go through a big process, and it's going to be a long time before that process is complete. So you can't just up and change it to fit the scenario. So that's probably the biggest stumbling block for some of us, is to look at it and to address it from the respective, it's just not part of the master plan, and it opens the door for a lot of people to be able to use that as a tool to create additional havoc down the road. So we don't want to do that. So anyways,
Call for a vote.
calling for a vote.
It looked like Lisa Kelly had a comment. I don't know if you can still take
Call for a
them.
vote.
No, at least you made your comment earlier, and I appreciate it, but the board's going to make its decision at this point. So
That's fine, and I'll make my comment afterwards, or I'll stay to the end, or I'll do it next time. But I'm just surprised. I have horses and chickens, and that's what this neighborhood's all about. So obviously, Mr. Bryson, you don't know where we live.
thank you, Lisa.
Call for a vote, please.
All right, ready to vote. This motion is to deny, so a yes vote will affirm your agreement with that motion to deny. Mrs. Frederick.
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia.
Salvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis.
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe.
Oh, yes.
You said yes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Cooper.
Cooper, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we'll move on to new business. First item is going to be an introduction to a rezoning request, and it's for request Z021 to change from ARR, agricultural and rural residential, to R3, single family residential, 3-acre zoning district. It's 2810 South Milford Road. The identification number is 11-34-301-016, and it's submitted by applicant Andrew Piles. So this piece of property is down by the high school. It's actually south of the high school, and it's on the same side of the road. So,
And it's master planned multifamily. So, and they're asking to go from 5-acre to 3-acre residential.
so this is strictly an introduction. Lisa, we don't need to do anything beyond just
Need
approve.
a motion to
Make a
introduce.
motion to introduce it, correct?
Yes, if you want to introduce this.
Okay, so I'll make the motion that we introduce the rezoning request as recently read, to change the parcel from ARR, rural residential, to R3, single family residential, 3-acre zoning.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please. Unless you have some
Does
discussion on it.
anybody have any other discussion? If not, okay. We'll start voting. Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes?
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Now votes yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamel, yes.
Motion carries.
That'll be coming up on next month's docket. Okay, the next item, township vehicle use and travel reimbursement policy. Tammy, you want to take that?
Sure. So this is something that's been in the works for probably years, I don't know. But to clarify some situations with our usage of the township vehicles and to make sure employees know what to expect for when they travel and use their credit cards for meals and all of that. So after discussing with Judy today, I want to add a word to the first paragraph to include the use of vehicles for elections. And then for travel policy, to clarify that when traveling and taking a full day class, you are eligible for reimbursement for one meal plus reimbursement. It's not either or, so it's one meal plus reimbursement for mileage, I should say. So those two little tweaks, and then I'll answer any questions if you have them on this.
All right. If there's no questions, then I'll make a motion that we approve the additions to the policy manual. That's the employee policy manual, as evidenced in the documentation provided by the clerk, for vehicle use and travel reimbursement.
Support, Cooper.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
All right, voting, Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes?
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Mr. Howe votes yes, sorry.
okay. Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes. Mr. Hamel,
Mr. Hamel, yes.
motion carries.
Okay, the next item comes up from an action that I took in a previous board meeting. There was some comments about how we were using purchasing for particular things, and it was about the sheds for the move that we made. We're going to be making out of the township hall. So it was these sheds that were a deposit was made with a credit card. But anyways, what it boiled down to is that it's very clear that there's going to be other things that we need to make happen that are part of the process of moving that were estimated into the budget in the first place for the move. So Tammy had worked on a temporary waiver of the purchasing policy, and that is the document that I think you got it in there. Where'd you put that thing?
Right where it's supposed to be. So basically, it's limited by the budget that's been provided for the transition, and it ends when we are fully moved over into the fire station. And it only kicks in if all three of us in-house officials agree to the purchase. And then we can notify the board at the next meeting. It'll probably be in consent agenda if we do make any of those purchases.
So I can make the motion that was suggested is to waive the township's purchasing policy for expenses related to the transition from Township Hall to the fire station, subject to the following. Number one, approval of all three in-house elected officials. Number two, purchases not to exceed the budget approved for the transition. Number 3, notice of the purchase to be provided to the board on the next township board meeting agenda. And number 4, this waiver automatically terminates upon completion of the transition to the fire station.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Anybody have any questions on that? All right,
I'd just like to thank you for the clarification. This is really helpful.
that was a good idea.
Very good idea.
All right, so vote please.
All right, voting, Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
For how, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes, Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamill, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, this next item, budget amendment, capital improvement. This directly reflects the thing we just voted on. It shows the budget that we're allocating for the move from the current building to the fire hall. So anybody have any questions on that?
I would move to accept the budget amendment as presented.
Lewis, support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
All right, Mr. Howe,
Howe votes yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes, Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamill, yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next item. Like to make a motion to go into closed session to consider the acquisition of real property in accordance with MCL 15.268D, possible new business. To consider acquisition of real property. So
Support, Cooper.
okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
All right, Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes, Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Your Howe votes yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Mr. Hamill, yes.
Motion carries. Voting starts.
I would make the motion to authorize the supervisor to move forward to put the documentation together in order to acquire the said properties,
As discussed in closed session.
as discussed in closed session.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Cooper, support.
okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
All right. Voting, Mrs. Frederick,
Frederick, yes.
Clerk Flowers votes yes, Mr. Salvia,
Sylvia, yes.
Mrs. Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Mr. Howe,
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Cooper, yes.
Mr. Hamel.
Hamill, yes.
All right, motion carries.
All right, thank you, everybody. On that note, meeting's adjourned.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah,
I was thinking, but it came up when they were doing the, it just popped in my mind when they were doing the audit stuff, is that she mentioned the bike trail. And I just think we need to do a good job, as I'm an avid user of the bike path, that we need to do a good job of educating both bike riders, of course, and drivers, especially at the Hickory Ridge intersection. I mean, I've had a couple times where I've had the right of way and people making a turn on right on red. They don't even look around. They don't even pay attention to anybody coming through. And obviously I'm doing my part to look around, but trying to get through there, and you're going over the curb now. And I don't know how we do it. I don't know what we need to do, but somehow if we just help each other and spread the word that, I mean, everybody's got to look out for each other. I mean, but the drivers, I mean, the bike riders, I think on the most part are looking out, because I know you got to look out for the drivers, but people are, especially when they're making the right on red onto 59. Nobody's ever looking, especially left. They never look left. And it's kind of hairy getting through there sometimes. And I think we need some kind of educational, we can go on to Highland Matters, maybe, I don't know. And the bikers take the responsibility too. I put this out last year and I got a couple people back, you know, you guys, we do have to watch out. There's no doubt. And I really pay attention, but I think we've got to educate people because you're assuming you've got the right of way. And I know it's like driving, you can't assume anything, but I think we need to do a good job educating. It's a great bike path that we have running all the way down. And it's, you know, I have less problems at Milford Road in 59 than I do, especially at Hickory Ridge is probably the worst. And people coming out of the car dealerships too. I mean, we all have stop signs too, but anytime they're going, if they're going right on 59 out of any of those intersections or parking lots, they're never looking. I mean, they're looking so worried about the right turn on red. And so I just, you know, one guy was in my way the other day and I went behind him and he put his window down and I think he was just saying sorry. And I waved, hey, it's all right. I get it. But just working together and somehow if we can push the educational aspect that, you know, especially the walker's probably a little bit easier because, you know, but when you're riding your bike, it's like, I hasn't been a time I haven't ridden my bike at least once each time where I've got to really, looking out obviously, but I've got to really be on a true defensive. And there's been a lot of close calls and it's kind of scary because I don't want to go that way on my bike. So
that intersection is turning into one of the major accident intersections too. It's consistently having accidents.
Which one? Hickory Ridge?
Hickory Ridge.
Yeah.
Mr. Supervisor, a question on that intersection. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. At 8:15, the light was blinking. I immediately called the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, said that you have to dispatch someone now before someone gets hurt. I found out later there was a 7-car accident that day at Hickory Ridge in 59. Was that true, Jennifer? Anybody know?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay. And then it happened 2 weeks later. It happened about 2 weeks ago. The light was blinking again after 8 o'clock in the morning. That is a catastrophe, you know, because people don't stop. They're not paying attention.
Right.
So we need to follow up with the Oakland County Sheriff to see if they dispatch someone in time to control the traffic there, or get the Oakland County Road Commission to fix the, you know, get involved.
I've got one more question too, I guess, to Jennifer. It's starting to get kind of full again along there with branches and stuff. Do I have the okay to go out and take my lopper out there and trim some of that out, especially down before you get to Hickory Ridge? There's a few spots there, and pretty soon that tree will start hanging down by the trailer park. Last year I cut that out too. Am I allowed? Am it okay if I do that? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that would be great.
I mean, obviously save us some money, and I don't mind going down there, taking my car, and a lot of the stuff you can throw up behind there, which is nice. It's just brush, but
right. Yeah, that'd be great, Brian.
Clean some of that. I'll probably work on it once school's out here. I'll work on that. So.
And then just so you know that SEMCOG is a couple years ago, we actually participated in the bike safety program. So with Safe Routes to Schools, you know, you participate in the bike day a year, right. You know, bike to school, and it would be great. I mean, we get like flashlights and reflective things to give out to people about the safety of the bicycling. So we could definitely do next door, Facebook, Highland Matters,
I think it's just
newsletter.
Aware when you're, you know, I mean, obviously bikers have to respect the right of way too. When the right light or the light is red, stop, you know, that type of thing. But when it's white, I'm coming up there thinking I've got the okay to go through, and right. Those cars are barreling up to make that right turn on red. They still got to remember there is a crosswalk there. And I think we just do it our job to educate. I'm just speaking for everybody because I just know how it gets.
Well, and maybe Highland Township could invest in some, you know, temporary signage that we would put up for, you know, how they do for like motorcycles and stuff, but we could put it up for. Judy?
At the library at Town Center Drive, there's 2 stop signs, and I always it's like a flag to me. So I do stop twice, where maybe we should do that at the major intersections too. I don't know if we put that first one up because we own that, but that might help.
Yeah, the only problem is that we have to go through MDOT. That's not a county thing. That's a state. And they will not allow 2 signs there.
I just think a good education program. If we just get the word out, everything we can, you know, and after that, we just got to watch out for each other. But if we can just do our part, you know, it's such a great path. I mean, it's so cool. You can get all the way down to up to Dunham and ride back to Clyde Road and around. It's great. I mean, it's great. It's great. And going the other way too, over to you know, and I can see Rick working over there as I go by through the library. I can cut in the back, go to those subs, and we can work your way around. It's really pretty cool. But I just, every time you're out, you're on pins and needles, just hoping you get through those intersections. And that's all. So.
And I just want to add, you know, we have really good content in our Facebook page, and it hardly ever gets shared. And that's what really builds,
Right.
you know, we're shouting into the woods, and unless people are going to share those things, they're not going to be seen by people.
So Tammy, would we have to like join the group or like it, or how do we get notification when you guys post something?
There's not really a way to get notification. You just need to make sure you're following us and visit the page from time to time.
Okay.
And then share it. And the more you share it, the more it'll come into your newsfeed anyways.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, are we authorized to have this general conversation at our meeting at the end of the meeting, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just brought up a comment.
All right.
How about maybe we push for like have a bike path awareness week or something? Just kind of, maybe it'll just be enough to put the portable sign out, you know, maybe along 59 somewhere, or, you know, just some different options. It can't be very complicated. Just keep it real simple.
Right. I think that's a great idea. We just have to figure out, you know, kind of when the bike week is, which I think it probably for SEMCOG, I think it is October, but we could do it anytime. And we just need help organizing it.
I'd like to do it like maybe, even if it's next year, but we can start now, at least putting the stuff out there, maybe next year sometime like in like late April.
Yeah.
Just have bike, you know, just remind people, you know, we're getting bikers are going to be out, and please put and promote the use of the path, and to, you know, just.
I think
I like the newsletter and the blast too.
Mhm.
That's a great idea. I mean, it's just like a constant poke.
Brian, you should try fluorescent pink instead of fluorescent green.
Yeah, I've got green and orange and everything else on. And
try a new color.
I have one more question, because I was walking around the neighborhood and I've got maybe it's probably a question maybe for Jennifer since she was there. I'm not sure, but I noticed a lot of the green recycle containers in our neighborhood for recycling that they hook on the back of the trucks now. And I was wondering, how do we get those? Is that a cost? Is it, I guess I just don't know. I didn't realize,
Yep.
all of a sudden I just noticed them the other day that the bright green ones are all over. Speaking of bright green.
So it is a cost to the residents. So you would contact GFL. I can get you the phone number. It's on our website. It's $25 for the large recycle one, and it's $75 for the large trash one.
Okay.
At Highland Township, you can get a free, just like a 14-gallon rectangle recycle bin. Any resident can.
That's in red.
Nope, not, they're green now.
Oh, they're green.
Yep,
So 25 for the recycle.
yep.
Okay.
And they deliver it to you, and you pay them separately.
Okay. You just contact them. And I have one more comment. Sorry, I got a lot going on now. But when I was walking around the other day on garbage day, in my neighborhood alone, there was a lot of garbage that was left behind. Almost every 2 or 3 houses there was stuff. And I mean, I don't
Did
know.
they come back though? Did they
No,
come back?
I don't think so. I don't know. There was just lots of bits and pieces of stuff everywhere. And I'm thinking if every neighborhood's got that going on, it's no wonder you go to certain places and you got so much garbage is blown all over the place. So I just don't know if it make them aware.
Yeah, it was a holiday, so it was a day late. So a lot of people put it out the day they put it out for Friday.
Yeah, but it was more like after the fact, right? Just little bits of the piece. I'm saying more like that. It was not that. So I don't think it was so much that, but it could have been. I'll look next time around too.
Yeah.
But it seemed like there's just a lot of little bits and pieces of garbage, Ziploc bags and pieces of paper and more than
so
I just don't
at my
know.
house, the crows get into my bag from the time I put it out to the time I go to work.
That
So then
could
when
be.
I come home,
More after the fact to me, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure though. But it's kind of bothersome because there's a lot of garbage. I thought if our neighborhood's like that, I can see if every neighborhood's like that. It's just a lot of crap that's flying all over the place. So
well,
with that,
check it out next week so we can,
Okay.
in case there's a pattern, and we can take care of it.
All right. Thanks.
All right, thank you. On that note, meeting adjourned.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Yeah,
Have a blessed night.